Namaskar, greetings and gratitude. I welcome you all to another inspirational Star Talks. And this time it is episode number 117. And on the hot seat with me is Mr. Vijayan Bala. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Good
Welcome to Star
morning. Good
Talks.
morning, Preeti. Good morning. I'm fine and I hope you're fine too.
I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Vijayan Bala is an excellent teacher, wonderful teacher trainer, and an innovative and committed school principal who, throughout his career of 4 decades, spotted and encouraged talent. This is so wonderful, sir. Be it students in co curricular and sports activities, or in identifying aspiring teachers who could become quality educators. Mr. Bala has also been an excellent sports commentator for Akashwani and Doordarshan, who impressed while interviewing his sports personalities in the print and electronic media. This is so nice. In the last decade, in addition to training teachers, he has been busy writing books on teaching, English, and sports. Wow, this is so great. I welcome you again to the Inspirational Star Talks, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Preeti. Thank you very much. And I hope to really fulfill all your expectations.
Thank you. This is so nice. You have been interviewing for so many years, and now how is it the feeling to be across the
of being
table?
of being on the other side, I think
Yeah.
it's as interesting as it was, as it and it's a challenge. It's a really something I'm really looking forward to.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm honored that you are here. Thank you for coming. Sir, we would all want to know what made you take up teaching as a career?
I think it's a very interesting question, very good question, because when I was young, in fact, thinking of which career I should take up, at that time I had already got involved in sports writing. And side by side, I was doing a training to become a teacher. But after watching the sports profession for a while, I thought life was a little irregular. The hours were odd. And therefore, I thought teaching was a much better option. And then I got a chance to take a few classes, remedial English classes, before I really joined the profession. And when I took those classes, I found that teaching children was challenging and interesting. And therefore, I never looked back after that. I joined the teaching profession.
This is so wonderful. Wonderful. Sir, please tell what traits do you feel make a quality teacher?
Now, to be a quality teacher, or rather, I would term it as an educator, one basically should try and become a role model, because more than the parents, children respect the teacher even more. When they come home, they tell us, this teacher told us, this teacher did this, teacher did that. So being a role model, by role model I mean being showing traits like punctuality, discipline, the way they talk to the children, the politeness, and of course the approach, the thing about being disciplined approach, and then finally dealing with the children, how they dealt with the children. That's what mattered. Then again, it's important to understand children, to love children genuinely, not to pamper them. And then you have another trait. Of course, you have to have a thorough knowledge of your subject, because without that, it's very difficult to continue. And then you must have communication skills, which is very important. Then be patient and understanding. I mean, you have to remember that the class will also have children who are not so bright, and you've got to really care for them. And then one more thing which is very important for a quality educator is that you must involve yourself in the activities which children like. At least one or two. You may not be good at all of them, but at least one or two which you are interested in, you should involve yourself. Because in that case, what happens is you get to know the children better and you get to know what their strengths are. And the moment you get them know their strengths, you give them confidence. And once they are confident, they will do better in every other field. So these are basically the traits of a quality educator.
Excellent advice, sir. Wonderful. Absolutely. Absolutely. In your career in the field of education, how did you contribute to the development of the children entrusted to you, sir?
Excellent question, Preeti ma'am. In fact, whatever I've said earlier, I would like to reiterate because I feel I should practice what I preach, and that's what I did. Because I started off, when I started teaching, I realized the most important thing is to be a role model. I mean, the children observe you very, very closely. And that's what I've realized after 40 odd years, that even now they remember the smallest little thing which we did or didn't do. So many little things they remember. And what is important is how I talk to them, how I conduct myself. These are the first things I kept in mind. Then again, I taught my subject, English, as well as I could. In fact, stressing on correct language, because that's something which has become a rarity now. Even then, it was. Then again, the pronunciation. I mean, speaking English or teaching them to speak English the way they ought to. Then spellings, and then handwriting. There's no question of telling them, very good when it was not very good. We made it very clear to them that they had to improve, but in a very polite manner. And one more thing I would like to share here, I never use the word excellent. The moment you use excellent, you don't get any better. You've reached the prime. So after that, nobody's going to work. So you say very good, you leave it at that. And then, of course, I built confidence in the children. How did I do that? I gave them opportunities to speak, public speaking. I gave them topics and I said, you talk on them. But I used to use my substitution periods to great effect because in the class you have a syllabus to do, which is not always possible. So substitution periods, I would use them for public speaking or conducting quiz contests so that their general knowledge improved. So these are the things I would do to build up there. And then lastly, I would involve myself in sports activities in particular, where the children were playing. I would either coach them or umpire their games, things like that. So I got to know at a close level how good they were in different things. So these are the things I would do to help build them. And I've been very happy in the sense people have come back after many, many years and recognize whatever little I did.
Wonderful, I must say. You were an excellent teacher. Wonderful. Wonderful. So nice. Also, sir, please tell us about some great memories of yours in your career in education.
Well, of course, to put it simply, the children whom I was associated with, if they've reached great heights, like I'll give a few examples, like Barka Dutt, for example, she was a
Oh,
student of mine for 5 years in
oh,
succession at modern school. And
nice.
Barka Dutt, and then you have also there's quite a few of them. Barka Dutt is there, and there's a boy who topped the IAS in
Okay.
1994. He was also with me, and then a few others. But these are the outstanding ones. Where I've been more satisfied is children who were average in school with the encouragement that was given, and they are doing well in life. That is what has given me greater satisfaction. And then I
Abs-
must, one incident I'll never, never forget. In fact, I've mentioned it in the book I've written. This happened in 2008. I was attending a principal's conference at the APJ school in Faridabad.
Okay.
And when I went there, I was sitting at the aisle near the entrance, that's in the passage. And the chief guest was the STM's wife.
Okay.
She came a little late, and then she straight went with the host principal to the stage and then gave her talk. When she started speaking, I just said to myself, well, this lady has studied in a good school and has been taught by good teachers. And, and when she finished her speech, to my utter surprise, instead of going out, she came right up to me and she said, Bala, sir. So I was a little taken aback. Then I looked a little closer at her and I said, Jaspreet Sial, whom I taught in 1986 at Modern. So, and the principal got stunned. He said, Sir, after 22 years, you still remember her? I said, I said, no. Then she turned down and told the principal that, look, this gentleman remembers everyone. All the traits, all the strong points and the weak points, he remembers everyone. So it's not a surprise to me. But that
Great.
was, that really told me that there cannot be a more satisfying profession, or rather vocation, than the teaching vocation. That really touched me. Then there was another incident of a boy who was a young boy in class six. He'd come, and I used to umpire this was in Calcutta, I used to umpire their class matches. And this boy, very weak little boy, small chap, he scored only zero, but he played very well for the zero. So I kept, note of him and I told them, look, we'll consider you later because you are technically very sound. Later on, this boy went on to play. In fact, he played Ranji Trophy after that. He represented the school, did well in the school games, and then went Ranji Trophy. He played Ranji Trophy, and today you will not believe he's the head coach of one of the schools in London. He's one of the head coaches there, and he is head of cricket, in fact, he's called. So many, many years where he keeps talking to me, writing to me, but this was a great satisfaction. And then finally, giving examples will be far too many. So in fact, I brought out a book called On Being a Quality Educator. And in that particular book, one of the chapters was Traits of a Quality Educator. I first sat down and put down a few points. And then I said to myself, no, I shouldn't trust my opinion on others. So what I did was I took feedback from stakeholders who had been associated with me from 1976. I sent them mails and I just asked them a simple question. I said, why and how do you still remember me, if at all you do? And the replies they gave, keeping me in mind, all reflected the traits of a quality educator. And there were 50 of them who wrote these articles, 50 of them. And I published all of them because each one had a different trait, a trait of a quality. So this thing cannot give me more satisfaction in the sense that after almost 40 years, children still remember the smallest detail of the good which you had done. So that is how it goes.
Congratulations to you, and I would really want to read that book.
I'll surely get it for you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, you've done interviews for both the print and electronic media from 1917 till 2020. That is
Yes.
commendable for 50 years. Please tell us a little about the art of interviewing and some of your unforgettable experiences. And also, do not forget to mention that how is it sitting on the other side of the table today?
I'll start with that. I'll tell you, it's been wonderful
Okay.
to have such a good interviewer as you, right? You make it, and you really have followed all the principles of a good interviewer. Uh,
I'm happy to
in
know
fact,
that.
no, the first point I'm going to talk about it is, since you asked me about interviewing, the first point is the atmosphere must be cordial, very cordial, conducive. Then you can have a good interview, and both must be that. So that's what you made it, and therefore I hope this interview goes off very well, right? Which it should, I suppose. Then the first
Definitely.
point which interviewers should remember is that they, the people, the public, the papers, the readers, they want to hear the interviewee. They are not interested in hearing the interviewer so much. Therefore, the interviewer must ask precise, related questions and should just probe and get answers out from the interviewee. Then you have a quality interview. Otherwise, you will have, there'll be chaos. Both sides talking, the poor reader or the poor listener would never be able to catch on to what exactly the interview was about. So these are the points. Now, talking about some memorable, great moments, interviews, I would just like to mention there are a few. In fact, you'll be surprised to know, though I have been doing mainly sports interviews, I've also done a few others. And the first one will surprise you. In fact, it surprised me when I was asked to do it. This was in the early 80s. I was asked by a tabloid magazine of the Hindustan Times to do an interview of then the promising star Moon Sen. She was just becoming a star. So I was
Wow.
going to Calcutta. So they said, since you're going to Calcutta, please do an interview of hers.
Beautiful.
Fortunately, someone helped me to get an appointment and I met her. And
Okay.
not knowing too much about cinema, I was very frank with her. I said, look, ma'am, I'll ask you a few questions, but I would like you to talk. And I'll make my own questions from whatever you talk. And
Okay.
when I sent her a copy of the interview, she said, my God, you know much more. How is it that you just said you don't know anything about cinema? So that was a really great thing, great experience. And she was wonderful that way. She was very cooperative. She was very helpful. And she didn't ever make me feel that I didn't know much about the cinema. So that was the
Wonderful.
first and great incident I had. And then after that, I another great experience I had was interviewing Mansur Ali Khan Pataudi or the Nawab of Pataudi Jr.
Oh, great.
This this was a very very this thing. It came, I was given just 20 minutes notice
Okay.
to do this interview. The editor, I was with the editor in the Hindustan Times office, and he told me we want to interview Pataudi for the Sunday magazine.
Okay.
So I said I had his number, so I called him up and I said, we want to interview you for the Hindustan Times Sunday magazine. When can we do so? He said, a typical Pataudi, he said, come right now.
Okay.
so, so we got ready to go to his place. But before that, I told the editor, I said, give me a few sheets of paper so that I can just put down some questions on the way. And then when we went there, we spoke. You will not believe he spoke for about 3 hours. He
Hmm.
chatted. I asked him all different questions which were not in the paper also. And then the interview came out. I still have a cutting of it. Still keep it. It came out in 86. And the
Wow.
things he said, one of them is worth mentioning now. He said that time, the one day cricket and all were coming in. So he said, for people to succeed, for a player to succeed in all the formats, particularly a batsman, he must be a world class batsman. And that is proved correct because only people like Virat Kohli and all have succeeded in India playing all the three formats. Right, 86, he mentioned that observation. Then, after that, another great interview, which I feel was an outstanding one and great memory, was doing an interview of the great Balbir Singh Senior, one of India's greatest hockey players. And he was 48, 52, and 56 gold medalists. And in 1956, he was captain of the Indian team that played in the Melbourne Olympics. What happened was it came as a surprise. This was in 2003. I was doing commentary for some matches there. And when I came down from the commentator's box, when I came down, I found this old Sikh gentleman standing there. So one moment with the Indian blazer on. So I stopped for a second and I looked at 48, 52, 56 blazer. So I said, are you the great Balbir Singh Senior? So he said, yes, I am Balbir Singh, he said. Then I said, sir, I'm new to Chandigarh. I have nothing to do in the evening. May I come over and talk to you or rather interview you? So he told his daughter, please give sir my address. And so I went over to his place. And believe it or not, he spoke to me for we chatted for about 3 hours. And at the end of the conversation, he told his daughter, please bring a copy of my autobiography. I want to autograph it and give it. to this gentleman. He knows
Wow.
so much about the game. So this was something, and to get a compliment from such a great player was something which really still remember. And the last very, very wonderful memory was interviewing Abhinav Bindra, India's
Oh,
first gold medalist in the
wow.
Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, I got his interview, met him, he spoke. He
Um,
doesn't talk much. At least he doesn't come out very easily. You've got to really know him well to get it. And I was meeting him for the first time. But still, he spoke. He gave me a lot of time. He answered my questions. And the compliment I got was only after the interview was over, because when he went back home, he
mm,
sent me an autographed copy of his autobiography. And he said, "It was great meeting you." So that, and
um,
in fact, later on wrote a foreword for my books also. So that
wow.
way, he was so kind enough to do that. So these are
Mm,
interviews which I will never forget, particularly relating to the print media.
wonderful. So nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sir, you have been both a radio and television sports commentator as well. Please tell us about both these types of commentaries, and also please share some memorable experiences with us.
Now, this again is something which, the problem is nowadays you find the commentators, whether it's radio or television, they shout much more than required, which is a thing which is not required at all. I mean, after all, it's the batsman who has played the stroke. You're shouting as if you've hit the six or you've done that. That's not done. So that is one thing which I feel is unnecessary. If you hear British commentators or top class commentators, they never shout. They, of course, they vary their pace according to the situation, but they never shout, because once you start shouting, you lose control of yourself. But main things which you should remember is, for both types of commentary, you have to have a thorough knowledge of the game, whichever game you're doing. You have to have a thorough knowledge. In radio commentary, both you should have voice, particularly in the radio commentary, you need to have a voice that is suited to the mic. You need to have a voice that is suited, and such a voice that can, vary with, I mean, not lose its texture despite the position of the game. That means sometimes in football or hockey, it's very fast. And when it's very fast, the voice should remain the same. Of course, the excitement should be built up. So these are the things in radio commentary. You're creating the situation. You have to make the listener feel, that he or she is there. The description should be so powerful and so accurate that people should feel that they are there in the ground. So these are little things. In radio, the problem is, I mean, the advantage is, and when I say advantage uh, for the commentator, is that they can get away with some mistakes also, because there's no one to see what they're saying. That's the
Absolutely.
advantage of the radio. But in television, you have to be very accurate. You have to be very accurate. And the art of the good television commentary is to be able to add useful things to what is shown on the screen. Repeating what is shown on the screen is not required. Some technical point or some additional detail, if you can give, which will enlighten the viewers, that is what is required in television commentary. They both are. So television commentary, you've got to be accurate, you've got to know the stuff, and got to know when to speak. That's very important. No need to talk unnecessarily, because then you'll become a bore. So that's basic. Now comes the very, very, I've had some wonderful experiences in television. I mean, my first match I'll never forget, which I did, cricket match, which I did commentary. This was in 1979, the first commentary I did. And this was a match between India under 19 and Pakistan under 19. This was in 1979 at Kolkata. And what is very important about that match is, quite a few of the players who played in that match later on became top stars in world cricket, the under 19. So that gave me a great Pakistan side, for example. You had players like Salim Malik, Ramiz Raja, who does commentary nowadays, and Shoaib Mohammad, the son of the great Hanif Mohammad. These three were there. And the Indian team had Krishnamachari Srikant, who was then an under 19 player. In fact, he got a great 100 in that particular match. So this match I'll never forget because this was my first big match doing commentary. And then came the next one. The next year, I was doing commentary for the CAB, that is the Cricket Association of Bengal's Golden Jubilee function, celebration. They had a match for that where they called a lot of great stars from the former stars to, I mean, be present. And while doing commentary, I got the opportunity to interview Neil Harvey. Neil Harvey was one of the greatest cricketers, batsmen the world has seen. And he's the oldest living Australian cricketer now. He was a top class. I got an opportunity to interview him, something which I would never forget because Neil Harvey was an idol of mine when I was much smaller. So this is a thing. And then came the 1983, very crucial year. That was the year, of course, we won the World Cup. But that was the year when India. I was fortunate to do commentary at Srinagar, and that was the last match played at Srinagar, international match. And I was commentator for the match between West Indies and India. West Indies and India. And West Indies in those days was the top team in the country, in the world. And they had players like, they had players like Clive Lloyd, Vivian Richards, all the top stars of the great fast bowlers. And India, of course, had Gavaskar, Kapil Dev, and all. So doing that match, and that Srinagar also, and my English colleague, co-commentator, was in fact very close friend and schoolmate of Sunil Gavaskar, Milind Rege. In fact, he was with me. So it was a great moment doing Srinagar. And one striking thing about that match was we were almost sitting 70 feet above the ground, very high. And you'll not believe there was strong wind. It was very bitterly cold. So we were always worried whether we would be blown off the from the box. We were blown. It was so strong, but we managed to survive and do the commentary till the end. And then came the 86 World Cup hockey. This was in England. And this was my first overseas commentary.
Okay.
I went as the English commentator for Doordarshan covering the World Cup hockey in 1986. And it was a great experience to see how advanced their whole TV system was, the way things were conducted, how systematically, how well organized, and meeting so many different people. So it was a great experience doing that particular match. And then finally, much, much later, 2019, 2019, the Nehru hockey, which normally takes place in Delhi, they conducted their tournament for the first time in Hyderabad.
Okay.
And the and they asked me to do commentary.
Okay.
At the end, it turned out I was the only commentator for that entire tournament, doing 23 matches in 7 days, non-stop.
Wonderful.
23 matches in 7 days I did. And
Wonderful.
in fact, they were very so appreciative that in the end they presented me a wonderful memento for having done this commentary. So that is these things I'll never ever forget, these incidents.
Wonderful. Beautiful. That's so nice, sir. Sir, you have authored a number of books. Please tell us about these books.
See, I'll tell you when before I took a decision about which career I should go in for, I I brought out my first book, and that was at the age of 23, 51 years ago. 51
Well,
years ago.
that
And
is so
that book was called Indian Test Cricket, a Statistical Digest, starting from the start of our Test cricket history up to 1974. And it had a foreword by the great Vijay Merchant. Vijay Merchant was the one, a great player himself, and he was the one who gave Sunil Gavaskar to Indian cricket. He was the one who selected Sunil Gavaskar on his first tour. So Vijay Merchant he wrote the foreword, and his foreword was a certificate, the one he wrote. In fact, I still preserved it. It was so beautiful and so inspiring. That was one. That was the first book. Then much later, in 2016, because then I got into my teaching career and also there was no hardly any time to do anything else. So much later in 2016, after I had finished off with my school work and other things, I brought out a book on a quiz book. It was called the Complete Indian Sports Quiz Book, and it covered entire 23 games which India has played. And from up to 2016, it had all details right from the start of when India started playing those games, and it covers. And it had a foreword by Colonel Rajyavardhan Rathore, who won a silver medal in the Olympics. He was kind enough. He was then sports minister also. He was kind enough to write a foreword for that book. After that, since you're aware that I've been doing interviews for so many years, what I decided was to select 150 interviews which I had done, and I brought them out in two volumes of 75 interviews each, because I felt that supposing I left those articles in the newspaper form, what will happen is if I were dead and gone, then that those articles will become ruddy. So I said, why not put it in the form of books so that people can read it later, and use it as a reference book. So I selected 150 interviews from different sports and brought it in. Abhinav Bindra was kind enough to write the foreword for them also. Was kind enough to write the foreword. After that came my books on teaching and English. The book on teaching in particular, I feel, is a must for those aspiring to join the profession and already in the profession who are humble enough to improve. Humility is very important, and we as teachers should keep on trying to learn, improve, get better. Otherwise we'll stagnate. So this is the point. So what I've in that book, I've given my own experiences, saying that when who should take up teaching, why, I mean, what they should do. Then comes the other points, that is, like, I brought in some beautiful thoughts, quotations, beautiful, inspiring thoughts. Then you have the chapter on traits of a quality educator. Then you have tips for teachers also. What are the tips to keep in mind? What are the little points to keep in mind? Then finally, there are two chapters which I've recently added. There's one is on online teaching, because I want this book to remain, updated for some years. And the last one is on artificial intelligence in schools. So I've added these. So basic principles remain the same, plus these two new innovations, so that this book remains up to date for years to come. And it's been very simply written, very, very this thing, and it's really worthwhile reading. In fact, people have read it from cover to cover. A doctor student of mine, who's a senior doctor in AIMS, he told me, "Sir, this book I've advised my juniors to also buy, and learns that if they become professors, they can do as good a job." So that is it. And then the book on English. This has been my dream for many years, but it only became a reality last year. Where, and this particular book, you'll not believe, it covers all topics. I've started, the first chapter starts off with the basic mistakes which people make, even teachers make. And then in the early part of the book, you have a QR code in which if you scan, you get the pronunciation of 30 commonly mispronounced words, and many other details are covered. Everything you need. There's one thing which most of our present generation, they cannot write precisely. They cannot write accurately because they don't know précis writing. They have never been taught précis writing, which we were taught. So that is something, they must know how to shorten sentences, how to enlarge in sentences also. And these things I have highlighted, I've given them all kinds, foreign expressions, everything has come. And at the end, I've also included a chapter on how teachers can assess, like that, how they can assess in English. Normally, we are quite liberal about things, but very good, excellent, all we say, but how they can assess, the right way to assess things, I've also included. So these book also, what I would like to mention, talk about it later. Then came my last two books. They were related to the Olympics. The first one is called India's Olympic Medal Winners, Paris 1900 to Paris 2024. And it includes interviews of 90% of those Olympic medal winners. It includes interviews and where I highlight how they won those medals, all different aspects, and then thorough reports on how our hockey medals were won. And then you have pictures, then you have also statistics and an
Mm.
excellent foreword by Abhinav Bindra for that particular book. So all these things are there. Pictures, the statistics, it is everything you need to know. I mean, I in fact suggested to the education secretary of the government of India that this book should be brought in as a supplementary reader for the physical education students. The
Mm.
reason we talk about lack of sports culture in our country, if the children read this book, the physical education student, then they'll get to realize who are the greats of Indian sports, who have achieved, and how they achieved. So, all these things, it has interviews of all of them. And then the last book was a coffee table book on the stars and history of the modern Summer Olympics, covering from 1896 Athens to 2024 Paris. And it highlights, apart from giving short summaries of all the Olympics, it also highlights 82 top stars. And what I've done there is I've included, people like there's one athlete whom I've mentioned. She had polio when young, and she went on to become the fastest runner in the Olympics. I've spoken about her. And other things like these I've also mentioned. So, what I would like to add here is that these books are all available on Amazon. They're all, I mean, online. They all are available on online. But the two books which are self-published, that is my book on teaching and the book on the Indian Olympic medal winners. Of course, these books, if people want autographed copies, they can get them directly from me, right? The rest are available on online. I mean, everyone is available online. So these are the books I brought out, and I don't know whether I'll have the stamina to write more, but I'll have to look for an inspiring topic, and then I'll go ahead. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, what do you think? How is sports related to life?
Oh my God, sports is related to life in almost so many ways. So many ways it's related. Like in say in both these sports and life, you need to make the right choice. In sports, it's the right choice of a game. In life, it's the right choice of a career. And you need a guide in both cases to tell you. In sports, it's a coach who can tell you, well, this is the game you should go in for, right? And then you make a success. And then on top of that, in both cases, both things, you need to be physically and mentally fit in both sports and in life. And then you have, you need to have discipline, hard work. You need to do that in both. Otherwise, you don't succeed. And then you have in team games, for example, team games, the emphasis is on team spirit. Just as in, when you work in a school or organization, unless there's a team spirit, the organization cannot do well. So in both cases, you have sports, you have team spirit. And in individual games, for example, in individual games, it's like the individual in a school. You don't compare yourselves with others. Like game like golf, for example, you get better on your own. You get better. Yesterday I did it in 6 holes, or I'm sorry, in 6 strokes. Today I complete it in 4 strokes. So that should be the approach. It's not that X is doing that or Y is doing that. So these are the things. And then again, in both sports, we learn to, fight back from setbacks. There can be tough situations, and then in both things we overcome setbacks. I'll share one wonderful example which I keep on telling people, which is worth knowing. This happened in 1961. 1961. This was a test match in England, and England were playing Australia. England required 256 to win. and they were 150 for 1, almost heading for a certain win. Heading for a certain win. Then what happened? The Australian captain suddenly decided. In fact, the wicketkeeper went to him and said, "What are you doing? We're going to lose this match." His answer is something which is most inspiring. He said, "Look, we cannot draw this match. We are going to win it." That was his approach. And believe it or not, he won the game from that situation. He himself took 6 wickets, and England were bowled out for 201. So this thing that from difficult situation, there's no thing called a difficult situation. It's a tough thing, but it's temporary. And then you get over it. You've got to have the will to fight, the character to fight. So that is what sports and life tell you. Then finally, the last one is you learn to accept victory and defeat. You don't get overhyped or joyed by victory, or you don't get depressed by defeat. It's all part of the game, whether it's sports or whether it's life. So these are the things where it shows that both of them are related.
Wonderful. So nice. Thank you. So, my last question to you, sir. How did you manage to find the time for all the different activities that you were involved in?
Uh, I think it's a really good question. It's a very good question. In fact, I also sometimes wonder how I did it. Right? I wonder how I did it. To be honest, actually, I must thank my wife for that. She, in fact, looked after everything and told me, "You go ahead with your job and your interests." That is one. And number two, I also believe in proper time management. Time management. And you'll not believe but I've never allowed my school to suffer, or my proper genuine work to suffer. It's always been done on a Sunday or a holiday or something like, or in school time when they have exams where I can afford to go and do some broadcast because others can do the invigilation. The correction I never leave to others, but the invigilation can be left to others because that's a routine job. So I've done that. In fact, here I would like to mention, I also believe I would like to add in the 3 I's.
Okay.
3 I's meaning I, myself, having self confidence in myself. The second is interest. And the moment you have interest, you become involved. And if these three are there, you can never fail or never be unsuccessful. And that's how I managed both. But one last thing I would like to share with you, 1986, just to show you how I balanced both and how I kept both together. 1986, I was selected, as I mentioned earlier, to go as English commentator for the World Cup Hockey, London. Fortunately for me, it was during the autumn break in our school. But before leaving, I had to correct, and I did correct, about 250 answer scripts before the half yearly exam. 250 answer scripts I corrected and then left. Because I didn't want my children to suffer at the hands of someone else. After all, I knew them better. So I corrected. I said, "Doesn't matter, I'll correct it and then go." So then I moved off to London, did the commentary. In London, at that time in class 10, they had a chapter called In Celebration, no, I'm sorry, yeah, on the Grip of Prejudice. In the Grip of Prejudice, there was a chapter. And this dealt with that famous E.R. Braithwaite, that chapter, To Serve with Love. This dealt with that. And my hotel was just about 200 yards from that particular St. James's Park where that incident took place. So one evening when I was free, I said, "Let's go and see and experience that same atmosphere." So I went there to that particular park, sat on the bench there, in the chair there, and also saw the pond, the ducks, everything, just to get an idea of that so that I could teach it better when I came back. When I returned to school, I could teach that chapter better. And then I returned. Of course, I came a day late because the schedule was such. And the first day didn't matter because that was the day when the papers were distributed. And I knew that the children would not question what I had done as far as correction is concerned. When I arrived the next morning, I arrived at about 3:34. In school, I was back at quarter to 8. And the children asked me, said, "Sir, don't you have jet lag?" I said, "I've already missed 1 day of school. I can't afford to miss you anymore." So, so that's how I managed. It's, of course, so many little things. It's interest, it's involvement, it's passion. All these things are there, and the willpower also to be there in interest. So that's it. That's it, ma'am.
Wonderful. I'm extremely glad, sir, that you came here today, and I can go on and on because you have wealth of experience, and I have my list of questions there for you. But I must say, today's the podcast is the longest one,
Oh, I see. And I
so I
hope
never
that's not going.
wanted to end it.
I hope that's not going to be a problem.
Not at all, not at all. It's going to be a memorable one.
Right. I think it will. It'll help teachers. I think it'll help
Yes,
interviewers. It'll help everyone concerned. Right. And I
absolutely.
hope
Very,
it does
very
take care of
insightful,
it.
sir. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Preeti. Thank you very much.
Many learnings. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you, Preeti. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear audience, for being with us in this lovely conversation today. I will come back with another personality who has inspired so many lives. Thank you. Thank you, sir, once again.
Thank you. Thank
Have a
you very
good
much.
day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.